welcome to the inaugural episode of the 2 Goal Lead podcast presented by BCHL Network. My name is Brian Wiebe, and I'm the editor-in-chief and owner of BCHL Network, and we are so thrilled to get this podcast off the ground, so thrilled to bring you stories from around Canada's top Junior A Hockey League. From all 18 BCHL teams to the league office, we'll get it covered for you here on the 2 Goal Lead podcast presented by BCHL Network. So let's get going here with episode number 1. And we do go to the league office for this episode. Our guest is none other than Chief Operating Officer and Deputy Commissioner Stephen Cocker. Stephen, hey, thanks so much for taking the time to join us here on the very first episode of the 2 Goal Lead podcast presented by BCHL Network.
Brian, thanks for having me. Again, I know we were just chatting offline. I appreciate all you and your team does to highlight the BCHL.
Thanks very much for that, and hope here that the podcast is a big part of it. As we enter 2023, what's the league's perspective to this point on how the season's going?
It's going great. I mean, our number one goal every year is to get our kids scholarships. At the time of this recording, December 28th, we're at 169 NCAA Division I scholarships. That's 4 away from our league record. So in terms of our goals for our athletes, we're getting them in front of scouts. We have 10 players, one that's in NCAA right now, ranked on the NHL Central Scouting. That's the goal for us. So I think it's been going great. I know we've gone through quite an interesting past 3 years or so of kind of roller coaster of emotions. We're back to it. This is what BCHL hockey's all about, and we're looking forward for the second half here.
That's a perfect lead into my next question. This is on pace to be the first full normal season since 2018-19, if you can believe that. What's the health of the league's 18 teams coming out of what the world has been through over the last 3 years?
Yeah, the league's in great shape. It's interesting when you kind of look around other leagues, and to no fault of their own. I think everyone was trying to get through the pandemic and just try to survive and come out the other side, with all teams intact. Where we were doing that, but we formed new committees that were looking at the future, where we're going post pandemic, and how we're gonna come out of the pandemic and run, not walk into, what post-pandemic BCHL looks like. So our teams and our owners have come out of the pandemic with one goal in mind, and that's continue our upwards trajectory as one of the elite college tracking junior A leagues, especially in Canada. So as I said, going back to the pandemic, we had our futures committee looking at how can we improve the BCHL, how can we increase standards, how can we improve the player experience for our athletes, and that's ultimately what we're doing. We didn't just come out of the pandemic without a plan. We know where we're going, and we're enacting that plan.
Now, the bottom line is always the bottom line when it comes to the 18 franchises and their health. What are some of the initiatives being developed at the league level to help grow some of the revenues that can go to each team?
Yeah, so I can start off on the first one that, again, we spent some time to look at what we've done in the past and where we've had success and where we've had I wouldn't say failures, but I guess, not to the success of others. And that's our events. So over the last 2 years, we created a 5-year event strategic plan where we want to see our showcase go in the future, where we want to see our top prospects and all-star game go in the future, where we can add to our playoff experience for our fans, for our athletes. So improving events that we currently have in place, the road shows another. How can we get BCHL hockey to remote communities that don't have access to this level of hockey? Where we take that in those 5 years. That's one. There's going to be some exciting initiatives we have through our events that will be revenue generators for us and attractive to sponsors, which is the ultimate goal. but we kind of, like I touched on, the strategic plan and our standards increasing. One element of that is our teams will not be charging player fees by 2025. So our goal as a league office, while our teams are looking to replace those player fees with sponsorship revenue, with ticket revenue, we also as a league need to get better in sponsorships, in events, in streaming. There's multiple areas there that we feel as a league we can continue to support and push the envelope to support our teams.
In chatting with some of the marketers around the league, and I know that the marketers do meet on a regular basis along with the league office, what's the gauge? What's the temperature of sponsors coming back and supporting the teams and their communities as we get onto this side of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think, I mean, from a league perspective, it's certainly a storytelling for us. It's storytelling to, who we are, where we've come through the pandemic, what our athletes come to the BCHL to do. And I think once we get into the weeds of telling our story, who we are, what role we play in these young athletes' development as student athletes, I think that resonates with a lot of companies who have similar pillars as we do. Player safety, education, community, speed and skill, specifically the community and education. Those really resonate with the sponsors that we go and present to. So first it's the storytelling, who we are, make that connection, and then it's about, okay, what can we deliver? What events can we engage some sponsors in and create that excitement?
Now, recently, a former pro player and LGBTQIA2S+ advocate, Brock McGillis, conducted a number of educational seminars for BCHL players about problematic language in sports, talking about inclusivity and how to shift things in hockey in general. Why did the league feel that this was an important topic to tackle and take on?
Yeah, I think it's you've been a part of the game for a while, so have I. I think we need to make sure that we're educating our athletes. We can't take the position that they should have learned this through when they were younger, through the school system or in minor hockey. So when we bring athletes into our league, we just want to make sure we have the resources to educate them on topics that they probably haven't been spoken to about in a formal way. Obviously their parents or their teachers might say this is unacceptable, but to have someone that has or someone that has sat in the same stalls as they have, and Brock, who as you said played the game, and speak to them about putting themselves in, potentially one of their teammates' shoes, I think is so important. And just to be able to share his message about, the power of words, the power of inclusivity in our sport, having that opportunity to bring him in was important for us.
How excited are you right now about where the BCHL game is at in terms of the product on the ice?
We're very very happy with what our coaches and what our owners have put in place for our athletes. We're obviously an attractive destination because of the resources that have been put in place in our organizations, and our coaches leading the way in delivering that development. But we have 5 current drafted players in our league this year. As I mentioned off the top, 10 players on the NHL Central Scouting, 169 NCAA Division I committed. Keep going down the list. We continue to see record-breaking numbers. And another one is 411 alumni currently playing Division I hockey. Like that's another league record. So, to a certain point, we've spoken internally about at what point have we reached a plateau because of the roster restrictions and the pool that our teams, as we can only have, a certain number of U.S. imports, and no access to non-North Americans. So, at some point we feel that there's going to be that plateau, but our coaches continue to show us year after year that they're bringing in some very talented players, developing them, and the results are showing for themselves in our NCAA commitments, the NHL, the NHL exposure as well.
How about the excitement behind what these teams are doing in terms of developing these student athletes as young men?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. Not when you go through the 169, when you see the ones that are, the Yales, the Harvards, from an academic side, our teams are doing a great job internally with their counselors, making sure that not only are they developing as an athlete, getting to the gym, going to practice, going to skills, doing skills work and so on, all those necessary pieces, but also making sure that they have time to, get their heads in the books and making sure they're staying on top of their homework. The good thing about the BCHL is, with Cranbrook, we've added some travel, but when you compare it to other leagues, especially in our region, our travel is really, it doesn't compare. We're moving closer to just a weekend league with less mid-season, meaning less time on the road through the week, missing school, less time on the road. Not the best place to do your homework on a bus. So I think with all of those components, we're really, I do feel our teams are doing just as good of a job preparing these young athletes for the classroom as they are to make sure that they're competing for a roster spot and not just a commitment and sitting in the crowd. Our athletes are coming out of the BCHL and ready to compete for a position.
And I guess by extension, some of those are life lessons too, right?
Absolutely. We talk, you mentioned the Brock McGillis, having him in and speaking about, the problematic language. And that's, again, something we hope our athletes, and we know our athletes, are going to take with them to the next step. And we're going to be proud that when our athletes go on to NCAA, we know that we've done our part to make sure that they go on as mature young men. So there's that piece. There's our Corey Hirsch mental health seminars that we had with our teams this year. That was incredibly moving and important for our athletes to hear that this is common, and there's other people that have excelled in this sport in Corey that have dealt with some brutal mental health challenges. So really to open our athletes up to that. Another initiative our teams took this year was sexual conduct, consent, and assault training that each team conducted in their own communities. Again, all these little pieces, we want to bring it all together and make sure our athletes are moving out of our league, whether that be to NCAA, which again is our priority, or even if it's if it's to youth sports, or if it's even right to the workplace. We want to make sure that our athletes have the tools they need, and they should have coming out of junior hockey.
Now, during the first week of the season, the league produced the document to modernize the Canadian junior hockey system. Has there been any movement since then from Hockey Canada, BC Hockey, and the governance review committee overseeing the examination of Hockey Canada's structure and leadership?
Yeah, there's been a lot of a lot of discussion. We met with the governance review committee that was looking into the structure of Hockey Canada, and there's ongoing conversation. So that's really what we asked is to have not a seat at the table, but just to be heard, and that was really our issue over the past few years and beyond. We see junior A hockey in this country as being well below its potential. We see another path that is college hockey that hasn't been tapped into in Canada to its fullest extent, and even to the level of, we should be celebrating these two different paths of major junior does, and what we continue to say, major junior does a phenomenal job in development. There's no debating that they do an amazing job in developing hockey players and developing them onto to pro hockey. But we do a good job of that, but we do, maybe some would say a longer term development path through college hockey. There's a lot of success stories that come through the BCHL and college track and junior hockey. So we just want to be recognized for that, and I think it's good when both paths are celebrated.
I know one question that's often debated about around the rinks and people bring up to me all the time is that of expansion. Is that something that's on the radar for the league? Could we see a 20-team BCHL in the future?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I think it's something that could, there could be opportunities to expand. I don't think we would expand just for the sake of it. It would have to make sense. It would have to, we just spent some time talking about, the plateau of player. We want to make sure the BCHL stays a competitive league, and that's why athletes are coming here. They know they're going to get a competitive game. So if we add teams too quickly, does that have a hit on the competition and athletes wanting to come here? So we want to make sure if we do look at expansion, that it's strategic. We do it when it makes sense for all other 18 teams that are currently in the BCHL. So certainly on the table, we're always discussing. It's never a dull day in the BCHL office. We always have something going on. So it'll certainly be a discussion point, but we're not rushing to bring a team in any time in the near future.
Probably the same conversations that are going on around the rinks as well. Stephen, thanks so much for taking the time to join us here on the first episode of the podcast.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
He is the Chief Operating Officer and Deputy Commissioner of the British Columbia Hockey League. It is Stephen Cocker, our very first guest here on the 2 Goal Lead podcast presented by BCHL Network. That'll do it for our very first episode. Now coming up next week on the podcast, we will chat with a member of the Alberni Valley Bulldogs. Certainly looking forward to that one as we look forward to going alphabetically through each team over the next 18 weeks. Certainly hope that you will join us for the ride. And of course, for inside information, depth articles, and lots of in-the-know information about the BC Hockey League, head on over to bchlnetwork.ca. My name's Brian Wiebe. Thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again next week.